3 true gym horror stories from night shift staff. Most people think a gym at 3 a.m. is just an empty room full of rubber mats and iron. Night shift staff know better. These are their stories. Story 1. He was there every night for 6 months. Then we realized he didn't have a membership. Marcus T., former overnight front desk associate, 24-hour chain gym, suburban Ohio. The first thing you need to understand about working overnight at a 24-hour gym is that after about a month, you stop really seeing the regulars. They blur into background noise, familiar shapes that swipe their key fob, nod at you, and disappear into the weight room. You start to think of them less like people and more like recurring set pieces. The guy who does deadlifts at midnight, the woman who runs the treadmill for 2 straight hours every Friday. When you stop questioning any of it, that's the shift. That's just how it goes. Marcus had been working the overnight at FitCore, a large 24-hour facility outside Columbus, for about 3 months when he started noticing the man he would later call the gray hoodie guy. Mid-40s, maybe early 50s, average build, always wearing this faded gray zip-up and black sweatpants. He'd come in somewhere between midnight and 1, go straight to the far corner of the free weights, do his thing for about an hour, and leave. Quiet. Never made a mess. Never bothered other members. Never talked to staff. He just existed in his own sphere, completely self-contained. The gray hoodie guy became background. Marcus barely registered him. No wave, no nod. The man never even glanced at the front desk. Richie's he walked straight through the lobby and onto the gym floor, like someone who'd done it 1,000 times. That ease, it turned out, was the whole problem. Trouble started not with anything dramatic, but with a routine corporate update. FitCore's parent company rolled out a new membership verification system. Every member had to register their key fob to a photo ID at the front desk. Marcus spent the better part of his first 3 weeks under the new system flagging members as they came through. One night around 1:30 a.m., the gray hoodie guy walked in. Same faded zip-up, same beeline for the weights. This time Marcus called out, "Hey sir, I'm sorry, we're doing membership updates. Can I grab your key fob real quick?" The man stopped. He didn't turn around immediately. Marcus said there was a pause. Maybe 2 seconds. Maybe 3, 6. That felt strangely long for such a simple request. Then the man turned, walked to the desk, and placed his key fob on the counter. Marcus scanned it. Unrecognized tag. I figured it was a glitch. I asked for his last name to pull the account manually. He gave me one. Nothing came up. I tried variations. Nothing. Asked for his phone number. He gave me one. Still nothing. Marcus checked the visitor log. Members who forgot their fobs were supposed to sign in manually. He scrolled back through months of entries. The gray hoodie guy's name wasn't there. Not once. I told him I was having trouble finding his membership and asked if he had any documentation, a welcome email, a contract number, anything. He said he didn't have it on him. And then he said, "I remember this exactly. I've been coming here for years. I don't really keep that stuff." Marcus let him use the gym as a courtesy while they sorted it out. He asked for a follow-up phone number. The man gave one and disappeared into the weight room. The next morning, Marcus pulled the key fob scan logs for the past 6 months. He wanted to see how many times the man's fob had flagged as unrecognized. 0. The fob had never been scanned at all, not once in 6 months of near nightly visits. That's when I realized he was never using the front entrance turnstile. He was coming in through the emergency exit on the side of the building. The one that's supposed to be alarmed. Except the alarm had been broken for over a year. Nobody fixed it. It just silently opened from outside if you pulled hard enough on the bar. And nobody had ever checked, because nobody ever thought to check. The phone number the man gave was disconnected. They reviewed security footage going back 3 months, as far as the system retained. There he was on tape, night after night, slipping through the side exit at roughly 12:45 a.m. and slipping out around 2 o'clock. 6 months of free gym access. Possibly more. The older footage had already been overwritten. No ID on file, no payment info, nothing. Just a ghost in a gray hoodie who used our facility for at least 6 months. Completely undetected because he had learned to somehow set that the alarm didn't work, and because he acted so thoroughly like he belonged that nobody thought to question him. The truly unsettling part came during the debrief meeting, when the GM mentioned something almost as an afterthought. She said the other overnight staff had noticed him too. Multiple people on multiple shifts, 3 different associates, and not a single one of us had ever questioned him because he acted so completely like he belonged there. She said it like it was no big deal, but I kept thinking, what else had that man seen? What did he know about our routines, our staff schedules, which members came in alone at 2 a.m.? He had 6 months of observational data on all of us. We had nothing on him. He was never identified. The emergency exit was repaired the following week. Marcus never worked another overnight shift. Story 2, The Woman in the Pool. Danielle R., former aquatic supervisor, privately owned fitness club, Pacific Northwest. Danielle had spent 11 years in aquatics management before this incident, and she'd pulled drowning victims from pools. She'd administered CPR. She'd written incident reports about things most people couldn't stomach. Composed. Methodical. What happened that winter was not dramatic the way people expect horror to be dramatic, she said. It was quiet. It built up over weeks before I understood what I was actually seeing. And the scariest thing, once I put it all together, was how clean and deliberate it was. It started with the pool chemistry logs. Every night, the overnight aquatic staff logged pH and chlorine levels for both the main pool and the smaller therapy pool. Danielle reviewed those logs every morning. In the 3rd week of November, she noticed the main pool's readings were consistently off at opening with lower pH, lower chlorine, in a pattern that didn't match the previous night's close. A gap. It's a nightly drift that had no mechanical explanation. She recalibrated the sensors, checked the automated chemical dosing system, adjusted delivery schedules. Everything looked correct. The readings kept drifting. The simplest explanation for a pool's chemistry shifting overnight is that someone is using it. A body in the water pulls chlorine. It's just basic chemistry. The physical disruption changes the pH. The readings I was seeing each morning were consistent with a single swimmer using the pool for 45 minutes to an hour, which would have been completely unremarkable during operating hours. The club closed at midnight. There should have been no one in the water. Danielle started cross-referencing the chemistry anomalies against the building's card swipe entry logs. On every single night, the readings were off. The following morning, there was a building entry between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. from a credential labeled Temp, Pool Maint 4. The card had been issued 8 months prior during a major filtration system overhaul that had brought in outside contractors. Those contractors finish their work in March. Standard protocol is to deactivate all temporary access cards immediately after project completion. It's basic security hygiene. We didn't do it. That card had never been deactivated. It was still active, still being used, consistently on multiple nights per week, always between 1 and 2 a.m. Danielle brought this to the GM. Together they arranged camera coverage in the natatorium, the large domed room housing the Olympic pool, on a Thursday night, which the access pattern suggested was a likely entry night. The footage was not what either of them expected. A woman, mid-30s, athletic build, dark hair pulled back tight. She let herself in through the maintenance entrance, walked right past the keypad like she'd done it 1,000 times, changed quickly in the equipment room with gear she'd brought herself, and got in the pool. And she just swam. Clean, efficient 8 laps. For almost exactly 50 minutes. Then she got out, dried off, and left. No hesitation anywhere in that sequence, not a moment of looking over her shoulder. She turned on the lane lights herself, adjusted the pace clock on the wall to her preferred interval, chose her lane, pushed off the wall. The footage looked like any legitimate training session, just at 1:15 in the morning, in an empty building she had no current right to be in. 14 weeks of consistent entries, always Thursdays and Sundays, every single one with the exact chemistry drift signature the following morning. She had been swimming in our pool, alone in the building, for over 3 months. The woman was identified through the contractor company's records, a certified pool maintenance specialist who had spent several weeks on site during the filtration project. When management contacted her, they got something stranger than denial. She was almost confused about why it was a problem. She said she was training for a major open water race, preferred the pool at night when no one else was there, and was fully qualified to be in the water unsupervised. She seemed to genuinely believe this made what she was doing acceptable. No criminal charges were filed. She signed a formal acknowledgement the access card was deactivated, and an audit found 4 other contractor cards from the same project that had also never been shut off. But the part that stayed with Danielle came when she went back through the full 8 months of camera archives. Not just the 14 weeks she'd already documented. She wanted to establish the actual start date. First recorded entry, March 14th. The same week the contractor project officially concluded, and the crew left the property. She started the week her legitimate access was supposed to end, which means that sometime in that final week of the project, she made a decision. She decided she wasn't going to stop coming. She formed a plan and executed it for 14 weeks without a single person detecting it. Because who looks for a swimmer in a closed pool at 1 a.m.? The pace clock on the natatorium wall is still set to the split interval the woman preferred. None of the regular aquatic staff use that setting. No one has changed it back. Story 3. Something was living in the ceiling. Jerome K. and Priya S., overnight maintenance technicians, Commercial Fitness Center, Atlanta. Jerome had spent 9 years maintaining fitness facilities. He dealt with mold outbreaks, rodent infestations, a locker room flood that he still won't describe in detail. Priya had 6 years in commercial building maintenance. Between them, there was very little that a large building could do to genuinely catch them off guard. And what happened over 6 weeks in a late winter stretch in Atlanta changed that assessment permanently. It started with sounds. The main cardio floor, you get about 40 treadmills, row machines, bikes, A full suspended ceiling system with metal grid and acoustic foam tiles. Standard stuff. Starting in mid-January, I started hearing movement up in the ceiling. Not constant, maybe 2 or 3 nights a week. Usually between 2 and 4 a.m. Jerome paused. I told myself it was the HVAC. Old buildings make noise. I'd been in enough of them to know that ducts expand and contract at night, that tile systems settle. I had a very good reason to not be worried, so I chose not to be. But the sounds had direction. It wasn't a creak in one spot. It would start near the back wall and travel. And I mean travel, methodically. I'd step after step and toward the front of the room. You could track it. I'd stand still in the middle of the cardio floor at 3 in the morning and just listen to something, making its way across the ceiling above my head. When he told Priya, she was skeptical. She came in on a Thursday night to listen for herself. She heard it within 20 minutes of arriving. Footsteps, she said flatly. I'm not dressing it up. That's what it was. Slow, even deliberate footsteps. Not a dragging noise, not a random creak, a cadence, like someone trying not to hurry. They both wanted it to be an animal. Raccoons and commercial HVAC systems were not unprecedented. Jerome submitted a pest control request. The inspection came back completely clean. No evidence of intrusion, no nesting material, no droppings, no entry points that would account for animal access. The sounds continued. Week 3. Jerome found a ceiling tile displaced during his routine 2 a.m. walkthrough. Not broken, shifted. Pushed several inches sideways. The way you'd move one from above if you wanted to look down into the room. He stood beneath the gap and looked up into the dark space above the tiles. Saw nothing. But he could smell something. Faint, organic, lived in. Like a room that hadn't been aired out. He pushed the tile back into position. The following night it was moved again. A different tile this time, further toward the center of the room. An animal doesn't relocate to a new spot. An animal doesn't notice that a tile has been replaced and then choose a different vantage point. That's not animal behavior. And that's someone up there making deliberate decisions about where to look. Management instructed them not to enter the ceiling space themselves. Liability issue, full stop. Document everything and wait for proper authorization. They documented. Over the next 6 nights, they marked every displaced tile with a small pencil dot on the underside edge. 5 tiles disturbed in total. The pattern mapped a clear, intentional path. From the back of the cardio room, across the corridor junction, toward the building's secondary storage area. A locked, climate-controlled room used for equipment overstock that was accessed maybe twice a month by staff. The GM authorized a structural inspection. A technician came in with a camera rig and ran it up through an access panel in the mechanical room adjacent to the storage area. Jerome said the footage was something he still thinks about years later. A sleeping setup. That's the only honest description. Someone had laid 2 of our thin purple foam stretching mats across the support beams side by side. There was one of our large plastic equipment bins next to the mats, filled with protein bars, a few water bottles, a phone charging brick, cables, a folded fleece blanket, a small LED clip light clamped to a duct run. It wasn't rough or improvised feeling, it was organized. Someone had taken time to make it functional. Someone had been living in the ceiling of the gym. The access route was found in the storage room. A vent panel that had been carefully detached and refitted on a hinge made from zip ties, allowing it to swing open from the inside and close flush when not in use. Whereas the storage room's lock had never been compromised. But the room shared a wall with the loading dock, and a ground-level window in that wall had a broken latch that facilities had flagged for repair months earlier and never gotten around to fixing. A person could slip through the loading dock window, enter the storage room, lift the vent panel, and disappear into the ceiling above the gym floor. Police came. The space was photographed and cleared. The person, it's possibly more than one, investigators weren't certain, was never identified. Every item recovered from the ceiling had originated inside the building. The mats came from gym supply storage. The protein bars matched the brand stocked in the facility's vending machines. What I couldn't stop thinking about, Priya said, was the timeline. Nihim, we started noticing sounds 6 weeks before we found the setup. Management said the physical evidence, the settling of the foam mats, the wear pattern on the duct where the light was clamped, suggested it had been occupied well before that, significantly before 6 weeks. Jerome had already been running his own calculations. Look at the tile displacement pattern. The path from the back of the room toward the storage area, that's not random drift. Whoever was up there started near their access point and expanded outward over time. Got comfortable, got curious. Those displaced tiles weren't accidents. They were someone lying across the support beams, pushing tiles aside and looking down at the gym floor below, watching who was there, learning the schedule, understanding when it was safe to move around. He let that sit for a moment before adding, the vending machines. I'd been flagging small inventory discrepancies for months. Protein bars, water, the occasional drink going missing between counts. Management told me it was the counting system, calibration error, display glitch, machine misread. I wrote it up and let it go. I think about that now. I think about what that actually was and how long it had been going on before any of us were even listening to the ceiling at night. The broken window was replaced. The storage room received an independent alarm system. Every ceiling access panel in the facility was fitted with interior security bolts. Jerome put in a transfer request 6 weeks after the discovery. He said the cardio room had become difficult to work in, and he couldn't explain it precisely. Just something about the ceiling. 9 years in buildings. You develop a feel for a space. You know what it's supposed to sound like, what sounds it makes at 3 a.m., where the blank spots are. And the thing I've had to sit with since Atlanta is that I was wrong about all of it. For months, that building held something I had no idea was there. I walked that cardio floor every single shift. I checked every machine. And the whole time, above my head, just above the tiles I walked under every night, someone was up there. Living, watching, learning the shape of our routines. He paused. I check the ceiling now. First thing, every building, every shift, before I check anything else. Because the lesson from Atlanta is that you don't always get a warning, which is sometimes the thing that's been there the longest is the thing you would have sworn an hour before you found it was absolutely impossible. If any of these stories felt uncomfortably close, that's the point. The scariest things in a 24-hour gym aren't the ones that announce themselves. They're the ones that learned, a long time ago, how to be invisible.